everybody, it's Bevin. This is my co-host, Biscuit Reynolds, and I want to welcome you to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevin. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. I'm so excited to introduce you to Sam. Sam Montanaro is an incredible entrepreneur, creative, who I've gotten to know actually during the pandemic, a pandemic friend. You can make friends online for real. And Tokeativity, I've talked about this before. I've met a lot of actually really incredible women through Tokeativity. It is, they call it a beehive of activity in terms of all the ways in which they create community. But I have yet to meet someone who wasn't awesome through Tokeativity. And Sam is the co-founder and just such an incredible person who has healed a lot with plants. She called herself to me a plant maximalist, but more of a minimalist in life, right? So like she just loves to surround herself with plants, and I love that about her. And I'm excited. There's so much in this episode and so much more to talk about. So I'm excited to have her back. But so much in this episode about healing with plants and creating a healing life. And I'm intentionally creating a series of podcast episodes. And I put a treasure map up on queerfatfemme.com, which is my blog. I put up a treasure map of different episodes of people who are healing with psilocybin specifically, because I think honestly, when I watched the movie Fantastic Fungi and I recognized how Paleolithic humans were utilizing psilocybin and it was part of the evolution of the brain, that's where I was like, I think we're in a time, this age of Aquarius that's busting open. This is a time to evolve. And this is a time for us to really heal from the effects of colonialism and systems and the ways in which our brain sort of conforms to this nutso world around us. And in fact, there's more truth to be revealed. And I think as each and every one of us becomes more us, like as you become more you, as Bevin becomes more Bevin, as Sam becomes more Sam, we level up the consciousness of the world and create emergent timelines. Like a new possibility emerges the more I'm doing me. And for me, my mission in life is to help leaders get free in their minds and bodies. I say leaders because it takes a ton of self-leadership simply to show up to an aerobics class. Not just aerobics though, but of course, like a healing life, a life where you are actively involved in growing and becoming a better person. That is self-leadership. And a lot of people are frankly too lazy to get uncomfortable and realize the uncomfortable truths. And I don't say that laziness with any judgment. I just mean, people just won't. And that's, there's so much that goes into why people just won't, but I will. And if you will, I want to show you how. And I think sometimes really hearing people's stories and connecting with how people heal and what they do helps to illuminate for you. I want you to put everything you hear from me, from this podcast, and frankly, from what you learn in the world around you through the filter of your heart and what is true for you in your heart, because that intuition, that self-knowing is going to show you the way. I can show you what's worked for me. I can talk to other people about what's worked for them, but it's you who's going to know what's right for you. So, so much resource in this episode. I'm excited for you to dig into this. And if this is helpful for you, that little treasure map on queerfatfemme.com about the podcast, it's going to help a lot. So you could literally just Google Bevin psilocybin or Bevin magic mushrooms, Bevin's podcast. I think that will work to find that treasure map, but I'll also put a link to it in the show notes below, along with all the ways that you can connect with Sam and the best way to support this podcast. I am not a sponsorship queen. I am simply a Patreon supported artist. Patreon is a website that allows folks like you to support creators like me who create work that you value and love and want to see in the world. I am so grateful to everyone, past, present, and future, who has supported my Patreon and allowed this to be my job. I am so grateful to get to put my work into the world. Patreon.com/FKDP stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, which is my aerobics class for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. It is far more than an aerobics class, although that is what it feels like. It's also, I think, a healing, and it's a great way for me to share with you what I've learned about how I've become who I am. If you've never been to my aerobics class, you have no idea what I'm capable of. And it is a really tremendous experience. I meet you at all levels. It is a genuinely all levels class. Minimum participation is just showing up and cheering along. I've had clients literally lay in the fetal position in their bed the whole time, and that is totally welcome. The class is included. My Zoom classes are included at any level of support. Starts at $7 a month. I teach at least 5 Zoom classes a month, so it's a big value right there. I have on-demand classes that's at a $25 a month level, and I have a 10-minute class, a 20-minute class, 2 55-minute classes, a chair aerobics class, and a canna-size class, which is slower, more low-tempo aerobics for use with an optional cannabis experience. You could just do it for slow aerobics or heal. I find cannabis and plant medicine to be a really great ally for me with movement and self-care practices, because that a-hole that lives in my brain really likes to talk me out of stuff. But if I'm just having a good time, dropping into my body, and I can release those thoughts and those feelings, and like have that beautiful body moment with the plant medicine and movement, that helps a lot. So that's the self-care I like to offer. I also am doing a series of self-care parties, which are collaborations with other Patreon supported artists and healers and self-care gurus. I'm doing an art therapy class in just a couple days. That'll be available for anybody at any level of Patreon to come to, and available for that on-demand membership. So that $25 a month, less than the cost of one Soul Cycle class, and truly a ton of value. So if you value what I do in the world, please support patreon.com/FKDP. I want to keep doing this till the end of my days. I am definitely like really trying to think about how I can get off Instagram, because I don't think it's a particularly useful tool for me, but it is a great way to connect with folks. So Patreon and Discord, which is also available for anyone on my Patreon. You can get access to actually some of it even just publicly. So cruising over to my Discord is through the Patreon, but also there I frequently put up little links here and there about how you can get into that more. So anyway, I'm figuring out the way to be me and to create in the world and to create value and find great channels for folks to connect to me through. And I am really excited for you to be here and connect with Sam and learn from her. I want you to imagine that we are on a porch somewhere beautiful. And I want you to imagine a beautiful garden that we're looking out in, that we're sitting on some comfy, cozy porch chairs. You're cuddled up with your favorite childhood blanket, and you are hanging out with me and Sam on with the show. I love you. Thanks for being here. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yay. I'm so excited you're here. I always love to start business in the front. So will you start by just telling everybody who you are, what you do in the world, and what you offer?
Absolutely. My name is Samantha Montanaro, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Tokeativity. Tokeativity is the largest women's cannabis community in the world, and we connect via events and online in a digital sphere, hopefully in person again soon. And we also have Tokeativity Creative, which is a full service agency collective that offers equitable brands an opportunity for amplification through anything from content creation to PR, marketing, and advertising. So yeah, I love it. The Tokeativity community, really is connecting around this pivotal time in history where plant medicine is being revolutionized, legalized, decriminalized, and we're having definitely a renaissance. So we connect via those things, but there's also brands that are coming out here, and we want to see conscious capitalism practices. We want to see equity and equality in the business sectors of things. So this is where the agency comes into play.
I love that. I love that Tokeativity is like a little mycelial network. And like different fruits pop up, right? Like it started as in-person parties, yep, and then it became so much more than that. And I mean, I've met women from Argentina at Tokeativity online events. Like, don't sleep on the online events, everybody. I know some of you are out there running around in real life. I'm not yet, but I love the digital offerings, and especially in the women's community of Tokeativity, an expressly feminist place, which I love.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely not a Zoom call.
No.
It's an interactive experience. And I just love actually in the ways that the way our world has changed and kind of forced us to connect online. It really did kind of spur even more hyphae, if we want to use that word, in the mycelial network, the continuation of the webbing. Um, and it's just incredible to meet women on the other side of the world who are literally experiencing the same things that we are, at the same time. It's really brought about interesting thoughts with the, collective consciousness and kind of this global universal experiencing that we're all having right now, for sure.
Oh, it's been so nice and such a fun opportunity. Like you do really like I mean, even just networking is more fun with the Tokeativity gals. And so I think you're doing something great, and I'm excited to see it continue to evolve and develop, and especially like supporting newer brands, because cannabis and plant medicine are just like the Wild West, and it takes more collective energy to resource people who are under resourced, right? And so like a lot of business is who you know, and it's helpful to have places like Tokeativity where who you know can really actually help you do something
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. And what's interesting is we're in late stage capitalism, right? Where we're all realizing how gross consumerism has been.
Mhm.
And I think everybody to some degree is really waking up to this. And women do business differently, and people of color do business differently. They just do. Do we want profits? Absolutely. We live in a capitalist society that requires us to have dollars to survive. We have to buy food. We have to have a place to live. But the difference there, and especially with women, being caretakers, it's like we want to take care of our earth. We want to make sure that there's a healthy, safe place for our babies to be when we're no longer here. So what I love with Tokeativity and all the new brands in the plant medicine movement is that there's this real, I think there's this real like exciting awakening of different ways of doing business that don't just drain the planet and people of everything they have, where it creates a symbiotic relationship, much like a healthy ecosystem, where the rain falls and then evaporates and it then falls again. And then the circle of life continues, as opposed to just draining all resources and killing everything off. So it feels really exciting to be here in this time and place where especially cannabis has an opportunity to heal a lot of the harms done due to the war on drugs.
Absolutely. And there's still 40,000 people in jail for cannabis crimes. And yet there's white men profiting off cannabis right now.
Yeah. And there's me, like, I actually made a post this morning. It's like, I'm here on Instagram doing bong hits, being like, whoop, whoop, while like there's 40,000 people in prison. There's really something wrong with this, and we need more people to be activated and not only aware that that is the truth, but how do you help change that? And, the answers to that are a number of different ways. Civic engagement is the number one way. So getting involved in especially your local areas, your local advocacy efforts, contacting your local reps. But also a good way is connecting with communities like Tokeativity, that we have a wide network of nonprofits that we support that do different work in this space. And, National Bailout is a Black founded and run nonprofit that supports getting people out of prison for drug related crimes. I mean, this kind of stuff is, you can just be supporting these nonprofits if you're not feeling exactly ready to empower yourself as a citizen of the United States.
Yeah. I mean, there's all these different, very valid ways of being an activist and making change. Like some people are more like, protesters. They want to be out in the street and they want to do that kind of stuff. And some people are letter writers, and some people are like artists and healers, and like helping people learn how to use these plants more and in ways that are like, because I think the revolution is the most powerful when you free people up individually, like an individual mind that's free from the shackles of colonialism and believing there's only one way to be and one way to human. And a person who's free from that and wants to connect to the knowledge that we have from the plants that surround us and also the plants that we consume. Like, I think that's a way of revolutionizing too, and like destigmatizing. I can't believe how many people don't heal and suffer because they're too ashamed or worried about what other people think, to connect to a plant that could really profoundly heal them and get them off pharmaceuticals, which of course there's $1 billion industry that is feeding us into that.
Yeah.
The perception that we don't have choices.
Yeah. You know, I really think like the best form of activism at this point, that anybody can do, and literally everybody does every single day, is voting with your dollars. Just being empowered by how you're spending your money. And that goes from buying your groceries to, you know, those essential items, to where you're living, all of that. I mean, any dollar that you spend is actively participating in this. So,
literally every dollar you spend, like if you're spending money, for me as like an entrepreneur, I will never profit off of wage slavery. That is very important to me. And that's like t-shirts I print on. I've bent over backwards into a pretzel to try to make sure that everything that I do is not profiting off of someone else's suffering, because I think money has a soul and it's important to pay attention to where that energy is flowing and where I'm directing it and where I'm receiving it from.
Truth.
It's a big deal. Oh, Sam, let's talk about healing with plants. I feel like you're just like one of the mushroom experts in my life. If someone out there is interested in healing with psilocybin, magic mushrooms, where do you suggest they start? And what are some like best practices?
Sure. Well, I mean, a common question that comes around first is like, how do you get access to psilocybin? So getting access can be tricky because it's illegal. And even in spaces that it's decriminalized, like Oregon, it's still illegal to buy it from somewhere. However, the beautiful thing about nature, so I guess to that comment, like ask some friends, hopefully you can get hooked up if you're not in a space to be able to grow. But, you know, psilocybin grows outside. I'm in Oregon here. There's all kinds of psychedelic mushrooms that grow. So I've definitely foraged some, and that's been really an exciting experience. And if you're interested in doing that, it is good to find somebody who knows what they're doing. Of course, nobody should ever eat random mushrooms that they find unless they are 100% sure that it's the right kind. And you can do all kinds of research on how to identify them. But you know, growing your own is, I think, really cool. There's some cool resources out there. Double Blind is especially an amazing resource. If you're interested in growing your own mushrooms, it is legal to buy spores and you can totally grow your own. So,
and Double Blind, is that where you buy spores legally?
They have like a kit you can buy, but you can, I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, places online that sells different spores of all kinds of different mushrooms. It's really cool. My friend is in an actual like spore club where they pay like a subscription, and every month they get syringes of all different types of mushroom spores. And it's been really cool to see what comes. There's like glow in the dark kinds and just beautiful, like very colorful kinds, edible, gourmet, psilocybin, you know, psychoactive ones. So mushrooms are just really, there's a plethora of so many different kinds. I'm just infatuated with, you know, with the fruiting bodies and with the mycelial network. I mean, it's just a really interesting organism. I really do believe that we come from mushrooms. I think, you know, I don't know everything there, but of course nobody exactly does, but there's a lot of interesting theories.
Because mushrooms, so the movie Fantastic Fungi, if people haven't seen it, like the mushrooms are the mother of us all. Like the mycelial networks existed before any of us did. And like what I think is fascinating is they're not plants and they're not animals. They're this whole separate thing that exists. And like, they can nourish us. They can make our tummy hurt. They can like do a lot of things. This is why you don't randomly eat a mushroom. You want to know if it's a tummy no-no. So
yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
And also, you know, psychedelics and killing you, poisoning, but most of the time it's going to make you vomit a lot, and that's not fun.
Yeah. Well, purging is while necessary, sometimes highly
Fair.
uncomfortable. Yeah, I think like, I guess to answer your question of like advice for somebody who wants to heal using psilocybin, I think like first and foremost, it's really important to dial in your intentions. Just being like, I want to heal, like you need to get way more specific there, like what are you trying to heal? And I mean, maybe just sharing a little anecdote of my story could inspire the listeners by how to kind of approach it. So, like many people, I discovered psilocybin. Friends were like, "Oh my God, have you ever heard of magic mushrooms? These things are crazy cool," and we did a bunch and I fell in love. And, I was
How old
definitely
were you?
like, I was like 17.
Oh, dang. I was like deep in my 30s when I first.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. What a different experience to be like in that. I actually thought it was amazing at the time. It was like just what I needed. It really, I was kind of having some existential questions about this existence and feeling overwhelmed by the patriarchy. And, it really kind of opened up my world. And throughout my life, it was like, yeah, anytime I ate mushrooms, I ate mushrooms. What changed for me with actually healing with mushrooms was the beginning of the understanding that there's a lot of different ways. There's no like linear path to healing with psilocybin, but for me and my body, using smaller amounts has been way more effective. So what am I trying to heal from? Well, 2.5 years ago, I had a small stroke as a result of a neck injury. I was painting a ceiling and I like messed my neck up and I got a blood clot in my artery. I like tore the lining of my artery and got a blood clot and I had a brain injury.
That
And
is the wildest brain injury I've ever heard of. Like doing
no,
something as regular as painting a ceiling and
I
like,
know. Yeah,
ow, I'm so sorry.
it's called an arterial dissection and it's actually common in middle-aged women. And it will happen like I sneezed or like I was doing yoga or like I was painting a ceiling. It's like very kind of like daily things. I will say at the time I was highly stressed. I was very, very stressed out at the time. So I think that had something to do with it. But after I kind of came out of the fog of the initial, like after a few months of coming out of the initial injury, which was, really traumatic, I was very dizzy. I had difficulty making decisions about anything, very emotional. I mean, my brain was, just jacked. I mean, it just felt completely like scrambled. It was like somebody took a whisk and then it was like trying to figure out, trying to get all those pieces back into the right place. And I, through a conversation with a friend, he was like, you should maybe think about doing some microdosing. And I'm like, that's a good idea. I'm already taking some other neuroregenerative mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps. And, I was taking chaga for immunity, and all of these different mushrooms have all these different beautiful things that they bring to us. And it's pretty remarkable. I like even just taking cordyceps definitely makes me feel sharper. It's pretty like amazing. I definitely highly recommend if anybody is looking to improve brain function for like their work or creativity or being an awesome parent or whatever, they just want to feel better in their head. There's a lot of different types of mushrooms that can be great for that, but lion's mane and cordyceps are amazing. So I had access. I grow mushrooms. I do all kinds of things with mushrooms. I'm totally obsessed. So I had access to psilocybin and I started making capsules for myself. Because what I needed was predictability. What I don't want while I'm healing from a brain injury is to be tripping. Like I already feel like I'm in an alternate universe right now. Like is kind of what I was experiencing. It's like, I don't feel like myself at all. Like, I don't think like going down a rabbit hole is a good idea for me right now. Like I might not come back from that. Is kind of how I felt, even though there's no science around that. But like, I started making my own capsules. And what I love about this is it creates a predictable experience. So if you're going to use psychedelics for healing, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is to create a predictable experience for a lower amount, because it gives you this baseline that is really amazing. And the nuances that happen, even with a very small amount, it's been really transformational and continues to surprise me. Now, don't get me wrong. I have taken few bigger doses since, not too many, maybe like 5 in the last, and it's really been in the last year because I've been feeling a lot better, and I'm doing emotional healing and noticing how my physical wellness is really attached to my emotional wellness. And
100.
so sometimes taking a larger dose is really great at kind of uncovering some of those emotional things that are happening for me underneath the surface of some of my physical ailments. So I make capsules. I love to mix. I buy powdered lion's mane, powdered chaga, reishi, other types of mushrooms, buy it powdered. And then I figured out a ratio for myself that really works, but I do 1 part psilocybin to an equal part of a combo of a whole bunch of other different types of neuroregenerative and immunoboosting mushrooms. And I started documenting, taking them whenever I felt like it. Some people are like, really need I'm going to do 3 days on, 2 days off or something like this. I just follow my intuition. I hold a capsule and ask my body if it needs this right now. And sometimes I get a yes, and sometimes I get a no, and I just follow that. And it's absolutely been incredible. It's nothing short of amazing. I can say that at this point I'm feeling I'm a new version of myself. I am not the same after that injury. I'm a totally different person in a lot of ways. Mostly being healthy boundaries, healthy work-life balance.
Amazing how lifestyle actually really is part of this. Like something I learned about using psilocybin for healing is that it's rewiring the circuitry, because we're just essentially meat sacks full of salt water, right? And like that salt water it's channeling electricity, and we're creating new neural pathways. And you can do it simply, like there's science around like AA and the 12-step programs that changes the way your brain functions, because you're rewiring your behavior through thought work, right? And behavior. But like when you add psilocybin to mindfulness practices like meditation and self-care and good boundaries, all those things, like that is also helping it's just amplifying the healing you're already doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And healing isn't linear. Like I'd love to share this last week, I had a highly uncomfortable situation with a microdose. And I couldn't believe it. Like this continues to just surprise me, because it's like I've been microdosing for a long time. And it is just incredible to have had such a predictable experience and then to take a microdose. So I hold up the capsule and I ask, the answer is yes. And I felt like I was just stewing in emotional discomfort for like the following 4 hours. Like I actually kind of forgot that I took it. And then I just was like feeling just horrible feelings. I don't know how to put it other than I just felt awful. I felt awful. I felt upset. I felt sad. I felt so many different things, and I just stewed in it. And I realized that it was the mushroom at some point. And I mean, at one point I was like, it's like I'm having a bad trip right now. And this is like 0.1 grams of psilocybin. This is such a small amount. Many people take that, they don't feel a single thing at all.
I don't. And 0.15 is like the microdose I've ever even had access to. So like 0.1, I mean, but plants are truth revealers. And it seems like, and I'll tell you, I felt that way all of last week too. Maybe it's the whole, collective being yucky or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think my takeaway from it was actually that I needed to feel those feelings. I'm going through a big transition right now. I think there's a tendency for us to sedate, avoid, sugarcoat things, to not actually feel the icky things. And what I actually needed, I mean, I can't even tell you, I woke up the next day and felt better than I have in months about a particular situation. And I think it was because I actually allowed myself to feel it,
Mm.
so the thing about using these psychoactive plants in a healing journey is that they're giving you exactly what you need. And sometimes you think your ego, your brain likes to think, oh, I know what I need,
Mhm.
or like my doctor told me I need this, right? Like, I'm sorry to break it to you, but like, we don't know very much actually. And I think if we're operating from a feeling space, from a heart-centered space, you really actually get what you need. If you're actually listening to what your intuition is telling you, you do actually get what you need to make those next steps on your healing journey.
You do. And like, I think sometimes my work with my intuition is just getting out of the way and like allowing it, like allowing, like, I had a really good metaphysical healing recently, and she gave like aftercare tips. And she said, like, if you're going to have, like, if you're having old thought patterns come up, or negative feelings, or things that are like body pains and aches, this is part of a release, and just name that this is a release and allow it, and
Yes.
drink a lot of water.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it helpful too to just write about it, like, just writing it down instead of just kind of stewing in it. Sometimes feeling things can actually be tough. Yeah, there's a lot of resistance that comes with discomfort. So the surrender in combination of like, I find it very helpful to channel it somewhere, like put it somewhere. I'm a musician. I love to write music. Music is often where it goes. When I let it go, it comes out in a song, and then I'm like, there it is over there. It's no longer in here. And that feels amazing. And yeah, I think an amazing tip as well for how to get the most out of healing with psychedelics is the integration. It's not, we often have, if you do take a larger amount, which I highly recommend people do if they're feeling called to it. If you're asking the mushroom and it's like, you need to do a deep dive, like I would trust that.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have this powerful experience and you feel this euphoria after, because you have all of a sudden uncovered all of these things for yourself. And I think a lot of us find that after a larger dose, right away, you feel like it all clicks. It all makes sense. You feel very connected. You feel at peace. You feel a lot of different ways. And then we kind of like resume back, like slowly as that experience, it gets farther away from that experience. We do fall back into old patterns. So in using psilocybin and psychedelics for healing, I think the integration is just core. So like, what does that mean? For me, that means often writing down what are like the core takeaways from this experience right after I have it, like maybe the next day or the day after that, of like, what are the core takeaways? And something that's been coming up for me in a lot of my healing journey is like, you don't need to overcompensate anymore. Like you're overcompensating out of a fear of loss or a fear of abandonment, but you don't need to do that because you're already whole and other people are going to do their things and other things are going to happen in life. You're not any less if something is gone, right? Like you're already whole as is. So I keep getting this message. So how do I integrate that? Like I write that down and then I just kind of think about it and feel the things that come up with it, because what you'll notice is all of a sudden some other things start to come up that are in relation to this. And it starts to become a new pattern where you're like, wow, this thing keeps happening. And then you realize, oh, that's tied to that. And it all of a sudden becomes this network of understanding of how your daily life and your behavior and our patterns play out, and how you can change, but it takes time. And integration really means sitting with that. Integration really means not forgetting about it, not just having a trip and then being like, that was cool. Okay, back to my life. It's like, bring those pieces with you. Sometimes I'll write words and just keep them out. Like, that's kind of really common for me. Or I have them on my phone. I have like a note thing on my phone. Like, what things am I like, ooh, feels a little uncomfortable and I need to weave it in somehow. And I'd like to not feel discomfort around this anymore. Can't force that, but what I can do is try and integrate it. And that means just sitting with it and letting it be what it is and letting it evolve and letting myself evolve.
Oh my God, yes. The integration work. This is mindfulness, right? Like this is instead of just like having an experience and walking away. Like most of what we experience as trauma is not having processed fully all the feelings that came up and through during an experience. And I love it. Can we talk about, like, you've been healing with plants for a long time, not just like in the last couple of years, especially like using cannabis to kind of exist, and you've been a mom too, and I'm curious like what your experience has been healing with cannabis plant medicine and how kind of, I mean, your kid is a teenager now, but like so you've had a lot of experience kind of dealing in a more stigmatized society. I think even being a canna mom nowadays is still not the like it's not the easiest path for people, but it's a necessary path if they want to function, right? So like talk about that, and like also childcare considerations and things like that when you're using plant medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had been a recreational cannabis user for a long time, and kind of similarly, this like awakening that I described with my own journey with psilocybin happened when I moved to Oregon in 2014 and was able to get my medical card right away. I was diagnosed with scoliosis as a kid. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in my neck when I was 19. I was dealing with like a lot of neck and back pain. And it was just a normal part of my life at this point. I mean, I had a regular prescription to benzos, to muscle relaxers to help, just like very low dose, but still benzos,
not great.
And taking Tylenol, aspirin, ibuprofen, right? Like whatever pain relief stuff, definitely enjoying and needing stronger pain medications sometimes too. But, luckily never went down a rabbit hole of addiction there, but I can see how people sure do, because when you're in so much freaking pain, what happens is you freeze. And when I moved to Oregon, so I felt like I was like in a kind of like physical, like it's so scary to have your neck hurt. It's just scary. And I would have this where I'd have these muscle spasms. My neck would get stuck like with my head to the left for literally a week. Like at one point, they actually thought I had dislocated my neck. Then I had to get x-rays because they thought I dislocated my neck. My head was so far like straight to the left, and they couldn't move it. I couldn't move it. I was in excruciating pain. I mean, just like really kind of weird stuff over my life that would happen from like, I was doing some physical activity and then I like did something and it, whatever, so see this pattern for me and like my physical illness stuff that
it's all neck pain.
I'm like, it's all connected. It's all neck based. I know. I'm like to my like therapist and my
rich chakra.
I'm like, what's going on here? I'm also highly creative and I'm also a leader and whatever. So, either way, I moved to Oregon. I got access to my medical card. And what came with that was access to topicals. Cannabis topicals were actually the thing for me that really changed my tune around cannabis as medicine. I was hearing about people healing cancer. I was hearing about all of these amazing different things that people are experiencing. I was just in a shit ton of pain and was like, please, relief anywhere, please. I started using topicals, like, wow. I'm like, I have no pain in my neck for the first time. And not just like, oh, I'm on drugs, I feel no pain. It's like, I feel amazing. I'm waking up, getting my kid off to play dates or whatever, and I'm feeling amazing. So, what was something to weave in the parenthood conversation here? We never really consumed cannabis around Carmine. I mean, if it was like a party and people were outside and stuff, I never felt too worried about it, but like, I just didn't want to I didn't want to get my kid taken away. Right. I think that's every parent's fear is like, I'm like, I just don't want to touch that. I don't really know. So then I'm like in a legal space, and a medical user and using topicals. And I'm starting to really like, this is interesting. I'm feeling very called to be even working with plant medicine. And that's when Oregon voted and legalized cannabis. So when that happened for me here, a couple things happened. First and foremost, I started using topicals. Therefore, I started working out. I really struggled with doing actually any physical workout and maintaining any type of regular physical activity because I was in so much freaking pain all the time. Makes it very hard. You just want to curl up. I just want to like curl up on a heating pad like all the time. I still do actually. This is part, I'm trying to unwind that a little bit for myself.
Wait,
But
when you're in pain, you want to curl up on a heating pad, and now you're trying to unwind that from yourself too. Tell me a little bit more about that.
yeah, because I think it's like, okay, why does discomfort equal shutdown?
Ah,
Asking myself that question, like, why the minute that I feel some pain, am I just like, I'm just going to crawl in a hole instead of being like, listen, maybe having a conversation with my body, like, what's going on with you? How can I, what I hear you, I'm hearing you loud and clear, what's going on? And sometimes it is rest that I need, but a lot of times it's actually been the opposite for me. It's been, I need more physical activity. I need more movement. And I was a really highly active child, as all children are. And I was a gymnast and played baseball and did all kinds of things. And then as I got older and went through puberty and started to experience pain, I just really stopped being physically active from like that perspective. So, yeah, I think still, even though I do daily yoga and Pilates is kind of like my core thing now, because since the brain injury, running hasn't been feeling very good. It's still an interesting thing to ask myself. Yeah, why does discomfort equal shutdown? So it's a question I ask myself a lot, and just listen to the answer, and it changes. I get it. Why? Because it's like, because this is too much. I'm at my max. This world is hard. And then I add on some physical pain stuff too. And it's like, yeah, mama needs to crawl in bed with a freaking heating pad and feel some comfort. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
but I think that I want to really tease this out. The thing that you're saying is it's the dialogue with your body and allowing it to be a question. Does discomfort need to equal rest right now? And choosing rest. Like I've been trying to distinguish, there's like depression rest, and then there's rest that I'm actually enjoying. And I think sometimes my depression rest is like guilty rest that is necessary. You know what I mean? So it's like, if my body's telling me to rest and I'm just frustrated because capitalism makes me think I need to be producing in order to be worthwhile, right? But like, right, like, why does this but then there's also other things that are uncomfortable, like dealing with rejection, which is like my work in life as an entrepreneur, is dealing with rejection. And you have to, if success is failure 80% of the time, which it is, because you just got to keep trying and failing. Like that discomfort, like not being willing to be in that discomfort, means I'm not working and I'm not doing my work, right, and expressing myself, which, like, that's all throat chakra stuff too. So why does discomfort equal shutdown is a question I'm going to start asking myself, and not just my body but my little brain, which is really why I use this why I use the mushroom, this gal.
I love that. And really the key here is curiosity, that there isn't any one answer either. I mean, you might start to pull out a pattern that then you can address, but you might also, like I said, I mean, for me lately, I'm like, Sam, you like to think that everything's fine all the time and you just keep going. And I think that I actually still haven't, I mean, what I'm pulling out is like, I still haven't exactly dialed in my like rest and, active flow. Like I tend to just really push it. I'm known to burn the candle at both ends type thing. And, I think I just need more downtime than I've been allowing myself. And for me, that's why discomfort equals shutdown, because I'm right there. I'm right at the cusp of shutting down all the time because I'm overextending. So that's kind of what I'm pulling out for myself lately. That's been feeling like maybe that's a truth that I really need to look at, but we'll see. And I love being curious with myself and not judging myself, that any, well, shut down because this is all I can do right now. Why does shutdown equal discomfort? It's because it's uncomfortable and I can't take any more discomfort right now. That's totally valid and fine too. You know, it doesn't always have to be like attached to some sort of work. I think the work is asking a question and just listening to the answer without judgment. That is really what the work is, because when you start doing that, you start to not, you can't like hide from yourself. Your knowingness starts to really come to the surface and you start to lead through, I think, a more genuine place.
Yes.
Whew.
Yes. Oh my God. Leading from a genuine place. Oh my God, Sam, everything you do in the world is going to be magical and impressive because you're really doing the work. You're so engaged and developing and learning. And like, I think you have all of the, I read a lot of success books. You got all the traits, and like, even just being willing to learn and be curious is like the biggest thing ever, and adaptability.
Thank you. Thank you. But like I got here because of my relationships and experiences with others. Like I want to shout out my business partner, Lisa, because she actually called me out a few years ago. She was like, you are not being curious at all about me with this situation, with this work. You have made up your mind and you are literally not curious and there's no pathway forward. And she called me out and I literally I was like, you're right. I am self-absorbed.
I
I've been
love
very curious
Lisa.
I know, I love her so much. She's been one of my greatest teachers. We teach each other so much. And like, she's really been one of my greatest, I feel like, spiritual and emotional teachers. She just like, we're so different. And then we have such a strong partnership and we've really figured out how to come to the table with discomfort. We've gotten really good at it to the point that we're starting to not even have it very frequently anymore. And when it comes up, we know exactly what to do. We move through things way faster. But she really called me out on that curiosity. And ever since then, it's been really, I kind of obsess about it because I'm like, oh shit, how wasn't I applying curiosity? I am a very curious person actually, but I see what she meant, that when we assume something, or we've already told ourselves a story of what somebody else is doing or what the situation is, there isn't room for the magic of spontaneity and possibility. And if you keep curiosity in the forefront, I think what starts to happen is you start attracting in a different way. You start manifesting in a different way because you leave the room for the change. It's not no one changed. People are like, people don't change. That's bullshit. I change all the time. People change all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like, this is where boundaries come into play. Now I don't, just because I'm going to stay curious about my ex-husband, mm-hmm. does not mean I am still choosing to be in a living, ongoing daily situation with him, because boundaries, I need boundaries for my health and wellness, as does he. So, just because you're remaining curious about somebody doesn't mean that you have to change your behavior, or even with yourself, right? Just because you're curious with yourself doesn't mean that you have to just change overnight. Like, or whatever, you don't have to attach any expectations to it. It really keeps life quite whimsical.
Love it. And I think there is a distinction in life where you can create an adventure that you're co-creating with the universe, because the universe is just constantly forming itself, right, through our free will choices. And when I love that law of attraction connection to curiosity, because I think curiosity is my intuition telling me I need to learn more about something. And like the mycelial network, like when I moved up here, I heard someone at a coffee shop talking about Fantastic Fungi because it was playing at the Indie Theater, the Rose Theater in Port Townsend. And I was like, I can't, because I had heard Pat, my step-parent, talking about wanting to see that movie, and I was like, we got to go see it. And so I follow my curiosity, right? And like, then the mushrooms, like I just moved here. I was walking in the forest. It was fall. I was meeting the mushrooms on the path and just learning and connecting to them as friends, and like, but the mushrooms and the mycelial network, the more I learn about it, the more I understand how much they have to teach us. And like what you were saying about, like, you can't be your greatest without these other people who have come in. And like, I think we get these lifetime relationships that connect with us and help us heal and grow. And we're meant to share resources and information with one another. And like, I think one of my mushroom takeaways, like that I integrated from a trip, and sometimes like I'll forget to put my journal out, and so I'll just have like scraps of paper, like
Yeah.
my scrawled notes that I'll find the next day. Because I like to take what I call party dose, like it's a 0.75 dose. So it's not even
Yeah,
a
that's a
full
lot
gram.
for me.
Yeah, it's a lot for some people. For me, I like to feel it, right? Like
Yeah.
I like it. It makes me feel
Yeah.
it's fun for me. It's an emotional reset. I use it primarily for depression. And so like for me, like having the experience of just having fun and having plants help me have fun and like staying lifted, but like getting these realizations. Oh, I love it. And one of the scraps of paper, I still have it, says I'm an only child with many siblings. And like recognizing my siblings are like these family of choice who are here to help me grow and share resources and help each other. And
Oh
like,
my God.
and sisterhood is family. And I have a lot of places where I find my sisterhood, and like I need it. And it's what helps me be my best. And I just love the way we get to share our resources and our information and our realizations and our curiosities too. Like I learn a lot from other people's curiosities just because I love to be around people and hear what they're passionate about and what they have to teach. And yeah,
I just had this like image of you with a like shit ton of mushrooms like all around you, and then that tagline is like a meme. Like you have to make that, or like we have to make it. I feel like people will resonate with it. Yeah, absolutely. I love what you just shared there. And, life is such a wonderful journey. It really is. And, I was going to say something that I think curiosity could be one of the anecdotes for the toxic polarization of our society right now.
Toxic polarization is a very good term for that.
Because like politically,
mm-hmm.
A lot of us have like a visceral reaction when we think to like one orange person on the other side, the one who shall not be named. Okay, so like, like that's
that word. It's my mom's favorite color, and it's such a shame. I'm sure she'd love to be an orange person. She has a nice orange truck. Anyway,
all orange people are not bad,
no, just that one.
No, but something that I found to be like interesting to think about is like how do we instill genuine curiosity towards the opposite of us? Mm-hmm. That's tough. It's actually really hard to do. But I feel like this is a tool that we need right now. Like we need to remain curious. I feel very curious about white middle America. I'm from white middle America. I'm from Wisconsin. And so I'm from there, but I really honestly never felt like my parents from a very early age were like, what is she going to do? I turned 17. It was like, peace, I'm moving out, and like that, like,
same.
Yeah. And like moved to Chicago and like, hello world. Like I am here and I love exploring the world and I love exploring different cultures. And I'm very curious about white middle America because it's like, the more curious I am, the more I can actually understand. And the more that I am starting to, that solutions are unveiling for how I can, as an activist, for me, as someone who has a lot of family in these spaces, be a part of actual change, of not trying to change their minds. There's a spectrum of understanding, but like, can we get on the same grounds about how people are treated, right? Can we get on the same grounds about what being free means? Can we get on the same grounds around some of these things? Like this is the American, issue. Like, so I think it's curiosity is just a really beautiful part. I think that's probably, it's what the psilocybin wants. Like it opens up that for you because it's like, what? And then you're like, wait, hold on, it just, one question leads to like 1,000 more questions. And if we can come to peace and surrender with the fact that there's no one answer, that it actually is just a spiral and we just keep evolving and we keep going. So there's no one answer. Just keep staying curious, keep following your intuition, digging in deep, and you can't go wrong.
I think you're totally right. And like, I think they're just opening up all these paths for us to follow. And that's the thing that I think God, the universe, whatever that love force is that's driving the creation of our universe wants us to be, is just be more curious about ourselves and about the world around us. And like and I think something great that plant medicine does is it dissolves the ego.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it just makes it easier to walk through that ego dissolution, which is simply fear, right? It's false
Yeah.
evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
And right. And so like I think, and
Yeah.
cannabis has helped me so much with grief. And I experience a lot of grief living in a world that constantly disappoints me. Like
Ugh.
this world could be
Ugh.
so great.
I
We
feel
have the
that.
resources to feed everybody and we don't. Why? Like,
Oh, I feel that. I feel that so hard. That was my existential crisis, like of my life, right? My teens and my late teens, but also like it's continued. Um, yeah, I wanted to address, you had asked the question before about parenthood stuff, and I would love to like share a little bit about that too, because this weaves in like the continuation of all of this, so since having the privilege of being in a legal space where I'm now not afraid to lose my child, I was afforded the privilege of being able to educate him and take a different approach. And it's been really an incredible learning experience for me, talking to my child who's now 13. He's 13 and a half. And people have all kinds of different ways of talking to their kids about it or navigating their own healing experience. I decided to just be like really honest. Carmine knows what mushrooms are, and he knows, what the deal is. Like I told him about a situation just like about a month ago where I accidentally took too many and went to a concert and had I was like glued to the chair for like 2 hours because it was like a oops type of situation. And it was like a funny story attached to it. And I told him the story, and he asked questions, and, we kind of giggled about it and talked about it. And I just think it's so important to empower our, knowledge is power. And it's so interesting to have had this experience of educating him into saying over and over and over, when you are ready to try any of these things, please come to me. Do not go to smoke your friend's shitty weed that you don't know what's up with that. Like, come to your mama. Like, I got you. And we will make sure you have the best experience. Now, this is coming from a kid who sees me using topicals all the time. I've used topicals on him when he has a fever, when he hurt his leg or whatever, when he's sick, I like to do CBD bath bomb. If there's nothing better for any of us, our endocannabinoid system needs support. He understands that. So, talking to him about when you're ready to try things, come to me. So last year he actually came to me and said, he was like really giggly and like uncomfortable. And I was like, what is going on? And he's like, I've just been thinking about trying cannabis. And I was like, okay, let's have this conversation. And so we talked about it with his dad. We talked about it for literally a few weeks. And we were like, if the right situation arises, I think that you're ready for it. From his maturity level and his knowledge base, I think that that's totally valid and fine. So we had a situation that came up. He had his first experience. It was with me alone. It was great, very mild. And then he had an experience with his dad. And he has had zero desire to have any more. And that was a year ago now. And he's going to be 14. He joined the track team. He's in band. He's really motivated by friends. And I feel like I have already done some of the work to equip him with the knowledge to know substance abuse and why do you even want to try it? This for a lot of us are reflecting on this now at age 39. I'm like, wow, why do I keep grabbing that cider when I'm feeling stressed, especially with alcohol? I think for a lot of us, it's just so normal and it's everywhere. That can be very challenging. And unraveling our own
alcohol is incredibly toxic too. It's not plant medicine. Alcohol is alcohol. It's ferment, right? And so it's sugar. and sugar isn't necessarily great for a lot of us. And for me, like I didn't start getting into cannabis until I released alcohol from my life. And like, I'm glad, because I couldn't ever have a good enough experience with cannabis while I was also using alcohol. And then once I took that out of the equation, I was like, oh, but my first time, I love that you connected with your son and communicated and dialogued. And then he was like, kind of no, thank you after it. Because that's kind of how I felt after my first experience with cannabis. I was like, no, thank you, unless I was hard partying with friends and like full Alice in Wonderland lifestyles where I just didn't care how messed up I was. I am very much alive by the grace of God. As many of us are. But anyway, so I love that and how you connected and like kind of supported him making choices and like how he recognized it's a no thank you for now. And that's what a nice, reasonable way to be about substances.
We want to teach our children. How do we teach our children are not learning by us being like, I'm going to sit here and tell you this, like dialogue where he is curious and he is coming. And then I am genuine and authentic. And I've shared with him many times, especially when he's younger, I'm having a lot of discomfort talking to you about this. And this is why the drug war is really messed up. I got busted for weed many times. I also worry about you in the future. I think about you being stoned right now and it makes me panic. Like I shared these things with him and why, I'm afraid because you see people use a substance and lose themselves. I'm afraid because this world is really intense and for everybody. So yeah, we need coping and all sorts of things are great coping things. And all of a sudden you're years down the line in rehab, So like, these are the reasons why I'm afraid. And to share those things with him, I can't wait to see what he does and how this goes for him by me choosing that radical honesty. I don't think it's not age appropriate. Like my 12-year-old who's curious about smoking weed, it is not not appropriate to like tell him everything about drugs. How many kids have tried things at that age? Lots of kids have tripped at that age. I'm like, you do not want psychedelics right now. Well, I'm like, if you feel inclined, let's talk about it because maybe it is a good fit, but let's like really discuss why, because you have a developing mind, like going to a different planet is like, I don't know if it's safe or not. We don't even know. So let's talk about it, and I don't know. I find it's been very powerful. And now seeing my worries are now like, I don't even feel afraid about him. I know that if he's in a situation that his friends are smoking weed and stuff, he might say yes. And that's totally okay. He gets to make that choice for his body. I don't care what age you are. You're in charge of your body from day one. Like, and especially, I mean, well, maybe not day one, but like, after like leaving mom's breast, like you're in charge of your body. And, we live in a society that does not support that autonomy, that bodily autonomy, but I support that. I want to be in a world that supports that. You mentioned ageism before. I mean, children are some of the most wise folks on the planet because they haven't been convoluted and suppressed by guilt and shame and conforming, colonialism. Like it's really beautiful to see what they bring to our society when they aren't forced into this, thing that strips them of everything that makes them magical. I'm seeing that with my child. I mean, I radically unschooled him. He decided to go to school and he's like in 7th grade this year in public school for the first time. Never forced him to write, never forced him to do math, none of the things. And now he's genuinely like, I'm struggling in this thing, but I know why. And here's the things I'm going to do to get caught up there. And then on these other things, he's like, I just don't see it applicable and I'm not interested in learning it right now. And I'm like, that's totally fine. You don't have to. Like, it's just cool to see the ways that, that some of these ideas, I know it might seem really radical to some people, but when your genuine connection and support and love and safety and security is the thing that you focus on, and joy, funny, like hilarious. The world is crazy, wild, funny, weird. Like it's ridiculous. And I feel like we've just tapped into that of like, this is a really weird experience and we're doing our best. And I believe in autonomy and I want my son to be empowered with that and to help be a change maker. So I made some radical choices, in my own healing journey, but through this have healed him, have healed already things for him and my parents and my grandparents and the lineage that goes beyond.
Oh, you really have. Sam, before we wrap up, I want to ask like just a kind of couple of practical questions about like childcare and using plant medicine. Like, did you feel like you needed childcare when you were smoking weed, or do you feel like you needed childcare when you're using psilocybin, like more than just maybe a microdose?
Yeah, absolutely. Psilocybin, I think like I feel strongly that you should not be the primary person in care. You don't know how it's going to, like, even the microdose the other day, I had this like I had an experience. And if Carmine had been with me, I mean, at this point, it would have been fine. I probably would have talked to him and been like, I'm not feeling well and I'm going to lay down. Can I set you up with some activities, or like, what are you going to be doing? Do you need any help kind of getting yourself settled? And it's a little bit different now that he's older, but I would say as far as with plant medicine, cannabis, I have not ever really had the feeling that I am not able to take care of my child because of my cannabis use. Now, others who may need to medicate with large amounts of concentrates or whatever, for whatever reason, now cancer patients that are taking a full gram of full extract oil every day are not able to take care of a child. So like, you're just not able to when you're taking that volume. So I think you need to follow your intuition and err on the side of like, create the container for you to be doing your healing work.
Mm-hmm.
When you're caring for somebody else, like, is that taking away from your own experience? So asking yourself that question. And then, yeah, with psilocybin, like I said, I've felt highly uncomfortable, especially any amount. I mean, now I microdose every single day, have my kid all the time. Like I have done that at periods of times. Microdosing is a different experience. And that's after me getting to know myself in situations where I don't have my son. So you need to follow your intuition with it. But I err on the side of getting support from your community, and just be safe. I mean, again, you want your healing needs to be in the forefront. So can you have that in the forefront while you're caring for another? I think that's a question to ask yourself.
Yeah, and about boundaries and creating containers for yourself, and like maybe living a hyper individualized life, like where you're, in a tiny apartment, versus like being in a more intentional community where people are more hands on deck helping.
Yeah.
I think, my mom made a lot of choices when I was growing up, to be away from family because that's what she felt like she needed for her own mental health, I think in many ways. And like, I think I would have benefited from having more hands on deck, even if they were bossy, but she made the best choices she could for her. And I think, for me, I would make different choices, but I didn't have to make those choices because I didn't have a kid. But hopefully I will. Sam, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. You are so like just amazing. Like you're just such a radiant ball of light doing so much great in this world. And I'm excited to see where it all goes. I am going to share links to your Instagram and Tokeativity and all the things, but will you just give people a quick verbal how they can find you and stay connected with you on the internet?
Thank you so much for having me. I could talk to you forever. Like, yeah, I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, Tokeativity on all of the things. My band is Mama Sam and the Jam, and we're on all of the things too. And my personal Instagram is private, but you can send me a request if you would like to follow at Prism House PDX.
Awesome. Sam, I adore you. Thanks for being here. We will definitely meet up again and have another podcast episode. There's still so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Thank you so much, Bevin. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sam.